Welcome to the Certificate in Renewable Energies. Wind. Our ancestors harnessed it to ply the world's waterways and grind the all-important grain for food. Well, not much has changed. We still harness the wind, but to meet very modern energy requirements. Let's head off to Meridian Energy's Whitehill Wind Farm. So Peter, it's a pretty quiet day up here. It's early morning. The turbines don't appear to be doing much. What is actually going on? Are they generating?
No, there's no generation at the moment. You can see at the moment that they're sitting there waiting for the wind to pick up, and they're just idling. So you can see them slightly turning at the moment in the breeze, but that's not enough to produce any electricity at the moment.
What sort of wind are you looking at minimal to get them generating?
It's about 4 metres per second, which is about 13 kilometres per hour.
Before we get into the technology involved, and it probably is very complex, but what sort of maximum speeds and that sort of thing can they attain and what sort of breezes?
Well, at about 4 metres per second, that's when they'll start generating, and at about 25 metres per second, that's they will cut out, so they will actually stop, and the blades will turn out of the wind. All the power goes off the rotor, and they'll just start idling.
What happens? I mean, the energy's obviously generated. It's straight into the grid, is it? The national grid?
Yes. So any energy that's generated, it goes into the switchyard over there, and then into the power lines. And we're directly connected into the local distribution network.
We're at Mossburn. What makes a good site for a wind farm? Couldn't they be anywhere, or does it have to be? We're obviously elevated here. Does it have to be elevated and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, generally it's up on top of a hill, and you're looking for a steady wind, a constant wind speed. So it's not that today, but when it does blow, that's what we get. We get a steady wind breeze over time.
Now, the technology itself, is it new? Where were these turbines sourced from?
They're being manufactured by Vestas, which is a Danish company, and they actually installed them, and they now operate them on behalf of Meridian.
Actually, internally, what goes on inside the windmill once it's well, not windmill, but wind turbine? What goes on once it's captured that energy? So there's a generator inside?
Yes. So it's pretty simple, really. You've got a set of blades that capture the wind, and they're connected to a shaft, so they spin a shaft. It goes through a gearbox, so the speed is geared up, and that's connected to a generator. So basically the blades are spinning a generator which produces electricity, and that goes out onto a cable to the switchyard and then onto the power lines. The
blade itself, how does it cope with those heavy or light conditions? Are they automatically adjusted?
Yes, so the blades, they can turn 90 degrees, so they're constantly adjusting themselves to achieve the maximum amount of power out of the wind conditions at any moment. So they're basically like a sail of a yacht, and they'll turn in and out of the wind to try and capture the energy out of the wind.
How popular is this technology? In New Zealand we're running out of rivers to dam and generate electricity. Is this the future, or are we looking at solar as well?
Well, at the moment this is the future. There's a huge potential still out there to build more wind farms.
You're talking many years to build a dam and that sort of thing. How big was the project here? How long did it take? And how long into the future before major maintenance is required?
Well, this wind farm here, it took about 13 months, I think, to build. They first started moving dirt around April 2006, and we started generating, I think, about June 2007, so it's 14 months.
This is not the first Meridian project. Where's the other one, and how successful has it been?
The other one was up near Palmerston North, called Te Apiti, and it's slightly bigger than this one, so it was 55 turbines, I think, 90 megawatts.
And how many have we got here?
29 turbines here, and it's a total of 58 megawatts.
And for the layman at home going, what is a megawatt? How many houses do you think these turbines could feed?
This wind farm here can supply 30,000 average homes, which is about the number of Southland.
Okay, now this wind farm, so obviously over quite an area. We saw two actually as we were coming up the track that were very close together. Is there a possibility that they disturb the wind flow, or can you fairly much just put them wherever you like?
No, you can't put them wherever you like. The place is surveyed, so we know the lay of the land, and then the whole site is modelled to find the best spots to put them. So we want to put them in areas that they don't interfere with each other, and also maximise the potential wind for the site.
What, as far as crew goes and that sort of thing, is it quite labour intensive to maintain? Are there a lot of staff up here full time?
There's 4 technicians that maintain the park and run it, and the maintenance side of things, it's 6 monthly maintenance, and major maintenance we haven't really had any problems yet. So
what are those little maintenance things? Just lubricating and that sort of replacing the old bearing?
Basically an oil and grease, and checking the bolts, making sure the bolts are torqued up correctly, and just basically inspection.
Well, Peter, thanks for your time today, and I really hope that the wind does get up later and they can reach their full potential. Well, we've all heard of kites and, of course, surfing. Well, there is in fact a sport that brings both those elements together to harness the wind's power. It's a high-octane wind-powered sport, so let's go and check it out. Now, Barnaby, we've all heard of kites and surfing. You're bringing them all together, harnessing the wind.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about kite surfing.
Kite surfing has been around for about 10 years now, and it's only really developed in the past 5. It's a combination of physics, of meteorology, just like any wind sport is. Then you've got phenomenal advances in your fabrics. Your lines are super strong, your fabric's ultra light. You can pump up these kites with air to 10 psi and they're really rigid, so you don't need any carbon fibre spars or anything like that. And you have a device that can allow you to go upwind and up in the air.
Which is, of course, why a lot of people do it, to get that
Yeah.
here. And you were saying you get up to about 15 metres.
That is probably a record for me, but yes, someone said they saw me doing that earlier, so I can't claim it. Someone else said I did 15 metres up.
Now,
It was great.
Back to the equipment, it's quite astonishing, really. They are really like a wing, aren't they? And there are a few types. Can you tell us about the types and
Sure.
how the wind interacts with them?
Sure, as I said, most of them they pump up with air, and that gives them a rigid shape. But they work as in a wing. You've got the Bernoulli principle, where air travels faster over the top and gives it lift. So that is the basic principle. Then you've got lines to steer it. If anyone's ever used a two-line kite, they'll know that they can make it spin and rotate, and that's fun, but they don't get any power out of it. These are a lot bigger. The smallest kite I have is 5 square meters. The largest kite I have is 15 square meters. You're talking something that could cover a car.
And this is for different conditions, is it?
Yes, for different wind speeds. And then you have different, like you asked about the designs, you have people have gone in different directions with the way they've done it. They've completely modified and created something called a sea kite, which is the basic one. They've modified a foil kite, which it has 2 skins, so it shapes itself much more like a real wing on an aeroplane. And recently they've come up with supported leading edge, or bow kites, and they're the latest craze, because they can go in much larger wind conditions. They really increase the learning curve, because you can just turn off the power. The scariest thing is when you get out of control and you just get too much power.
Yes,
Fortunately, you're in the water.
Speaking of out of control, you have got a helmet on, so there's obviously
Yeah.
some sort of danger involved in this sport.
I wear a helmet because I'm starting to do some pretty extreme stunts. I wore a helmet when I started, then I was like, who needs that? That's wimpy stuff. And now I'm starting to realise, no, it's pretty smart to wear a helmet. So I try to encourage people. Also, I'm teaching, so I want to encourage safety. That's my main priority.
Now, as you're actually surfing out there, how are you actually steering? You mentioned that you weren't only running with the wind behind you, but you're actually going up into the wind as well. How is that possible?
Well, it's actually easiest to see it, and I'm sure you'll show something later, but the basic principle is you've got typically 4 lines on a kite, and you've got them connected to the front of the wing, and they support the force of the kite as it generates lift. Then you've got 2 more lines, and they do the steering. And basically what you're doing is you're changing the length of one versus the other, and it's similar to the stunt kite, and it twists the shape of the kite. It cups a bit of air and makes it rotate in one direction. When you see it, you don't think it rotates, you think you're moving it. But if you get extreme, and like I say, some of these stunts I can do, they get to the point where they fully rotate the kite. You drive it into what's called the power zone, because you have a wind window, which is everything downwind of you. You have an edge of a window. I'm drawing it this way because we have the wind coming at us right now. And everything downwind is where you can place the kite and fly it. The further downwind it is, the more power you get into the power zone.
Now, we've spoken a lot about the kite. Of course, it is a very large part of it, capturing the wind, but also the board. Is there anything special about the board?
The boards, mostly what we use now, are kind of like a wakeboard. They don't have the big suction strap-in bindings. We just slip our foot into a hoop. But some people do use the suction bindings because they work a little more effectively if you do go do radical stuff. You will see a couple of windsurfer style surfboards, or even modified surfboards. They're great fun in the waves, but most people are doing the tricks. They're on the flat water or even in the waves. They're using what's called a bidirectional or twin tip. So you can actually, you just stop, you move one way and you go the other. So it's a little unlike anything wakeboarding, snowboarding, skateboarding related, because most people have a preferred foot and they'll go either regular foot or goofy foot. This, you have to go both ways. It's much easier to keep your heels down in the water than to put your toes down in the water and to go both directions, either direction. But it becomes natural.
Now, we're here at Aurora, of course, which is an enormous area of water, a volume of water.
It is when the tide's in.
Yeah, it's very tidal.
Yeah.
What sort of depth do you need, and what are the ideal conditions to harness the wind and water the best?
The fins are about 50 centimetres deep, and you have a little drop in the water, so that much water is all you really need. It's safer if you can have it knee deep, waist deep, something like that. And you can survive in totally overhead deep. You don't need to be able to touch the bottom. It just makes it a bit easier for the beginner when he crashes his kite. So that's why it's such a great location here.
Also, you do like the surf as well. We've seen some spectacular stuff, I might add, only on TV, but
Yeah.
is the surf fun?
The surf is great. Surf is dynamic. It's a playground. You don't have to be jumping all the time to satisfy yourself. You can just be zipping down the wave. You can actually surf. You can kill the power and actually glide into the wave and surf with it.
Now, you mentioned you've been doing it for quite a few years now. What happened? Were you at a dinner party or something and someone said, kite surfing, you should do it?
No, I was in California and I was coming to the beach and I said, what is that and where can I get one? That was,
You
I was
had to-
hooked. I just saw it, I was hooked.
And I've sailed a bit myself. It's not the same, obviously, but you do get the love of the wind and that sort of thing. Have you found yourself learning a lot about the actual conditions and where's best and what time's best and that sort of thing? Of course, it's all very tidal too here.
Yeah, I suppose I have. I grew up in England and in Utah in the States, and I've been back to both those places with my kites, and I've seen it in a whole new light. It's not been an isolated spot, it's been part of this global weather pattern, and yeah, I'm always reading the news and checking the websites for what's coming next. And there's a little interpretation and your own experience, so yeah, definitely it's kind of thrown a whole new light on the whole situation.
And so, better than windsurfing?
I think it probably is, and a few people have converted, but there are others, they just love the speed of the windsurfing. You can't get the height that you can with kiting.
Right, so that
And-
15 metre. And you would expect to
Yeah.
get height in these sorts of conditions?
These sorts of conditions, I could jump, I could do tricks, but no, I don't think it. 10 knots is our minimum wind speed. It's probably blowing 10 to 15 right now, and 20 is really where ideal, 30 is pushing the top. But that's what most places get more often. Windsurfers, they like 25 and up to 50, which is where it gets cold and gusty and bitter and bad weather, and you don't get beautiful blue skies like this where I'm sweating and baking in my wetsuit.
Well, Barnaby, look, I can see the wind's getting up, and you see all your friends out there having fun. You're probably itching to get out there.
Definitely.
We'll film some of your manoeuvres. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing your time with us.
You're very welcome, thanks.
Well, next we're off to Te Anau to look at another way of harnessing the wind's power. Forming rather noisily behind us is a wind turbine that's helping to power your house. Firstly, what got you interested in getting a turbine?
Well, it wasn't something we decided to get on its own. We decided that we wanted to utilise all the natural resources that we have here. So along with the solar, we decided to purchase a wind turbine as well. And we're also looking at getting in a mini hydro system. And I guess it came from the fact that we'd been living in town in Te Anau, and for a good number of days throughout the year, except on those really foggy days, we had this little instrument that would sit on the windowsill. And it's kind of black on one side and white on the other side of these little squares, and it would go round and round and round, and it would spin really, really fast, and it would get quite annoying actually because it was so noisy when it was spinning. And we realised that this was obviously an energy source that we could tap into, that, you know, even living right down here in the south, was something that was working every day really.
And another reason you were talking about before off camera, that actually getting power to the property was going to cost a significant amount.
Yes, so even though the power line ran through the paddock here, the power company wanted us to put in a new power pole, and that was going to cost a set amount, then plus getting the inverter and then digging underground to get the cables. We realised that for the same amount of money we could put in our own wind turbine, batteries and solar and inverter system, and have no power bills for the rest of our lives.
Now, obviously it complements the solar. You've got the wind turbine. What other power sources are there here? Is that it? You're completely reliant on those sources?
We are to a degree, but as a backup we have a generator, which we use in the winter kind of intermittently, depending on what kind of a day we've had, just to make sure those batteries don't get too low. If they start to get too low, that means that they get damaged, and that wouldn't be good.
So we're talking about a day with drizzle, low cloud and no wind.
Yeah, so typically in the winter we can have weeks of just fog. And although we do tend to be slightly above it, during the day as it lifts we become covered by it, and those days are still, so we're not getting wind and we're not getting the sun, but that's where we hope the mini hydro system will come into its own.
So it's quite a noisy thing. Does the noise actually, annoy you, if you like?
Well, we're standing right underneath it at the moment. Normally we wouldn't be doing that, and it doesn't for me at all, and no one that's been here has commented on the noise. It's kind of on a par with the wind that's blowing past your ears. It's not an unpleasant noise. It's just like the trees, moving in the wind. So no, it doesn't affect our quality of life here.
When you installed it, did you have to get someone in to install it, or is it something that any DIYer could do?
Yeah, no, it comes with installation guidelines, and so we just followed those, and yeah, I helped, and I'm not a DIYer.
So you're basically running the line to the house to be stored on batteries?
Yeah, so it's all stored in, we've got 8 batteries, and that's what the solar goes into as well, and they all feed into the same 8 batteries, so which, whether it's sunny or windy, they're all charging up the batteries.
Now the technology itself, where does the wind turbine come from? Can you source them locally? Are they imported, or?
They are imported. This one is from the USA, Flagstaff actually, in Arizona, and it was originally made for marine shipping purposes, but it's been classified for use on land as well, and we got it from a guy in Christchurch. But yeah, like I say, you can install it yourself, so it's not a problem, where it comes from. Once you've got it, you just get it up there.
We know how consistent and high the wind can be here in Southland. Yeah. Has it ever broken, or is there a problem with it going too fast and perhaps blowing the batteries or something like that?
No, we've never had any problems like that, because it does have a cut-off. So if the power supplier is having a problem, it trips a switch basically. The manual says that if we're expecting winds above 100 kilometres per hour, and that's forecast, you might want to. You can get buttons where you remotely deactivate them, so stop them going, or take them down. But we never have, and we've had some pretty strong winds recently, and there's no damage at all.
What sort of maintenance do you have? What is recommended for them? Is it something you can just forget about, or do you occasionally have to bring it down and check it out and clean it?
Well, you can pretty much forget about it, but no, you need to make sure the guide ropes here are tight, and it's a good idea just to bring it down and make sure that there isn't any sun corrosion or anything like that. But no, they're pretty much for life, I think.
Yes, if it's designed for the marine environment, It's going to survive anywhere.
Yeah.
Now also, you've obviously complemented, there's no point in being efficient this way if you're not with your house. How well insulated and that sort of thing is your house?
Well, we doubled all the recommended insulation guidelines throughout. At some point we had to start looking at budget, and so cladding-wise, aluminium is probably not the best cladding, but we did go for dark on the sunny sides and silver on the south side, just as a kind of experiment really, and it's passive solar heated as well as wood burner.
And
inside.
Double glazing
and ceiling insulation is 3 times the recommended amount.
And I notice you have a burner in there as well. How often are you supplementing the heating with a burner?
In the winter we don't have to have it on every day. When we go and visit some people and they've got their wood burners going, we haven't needed to. It does also heat our water in the winter, and our water's purely on the solar, so it's quite good to have it on sometimes in the winter just to get that water heated as well.
Now you're saving energy again with your water system. Tell us about that. How is it fed to the house?
It's all gravity fed. We didn't want to, every time we turned on a tap, have a pump going, because we need to be able to regulate what power we're using when. So the water tank basically works by, we have a pump that pumps it to the top, but we pump it when we want to, so on a good sunny power day like today. And then it's just gravity fed with the pressure into the house.
So it's obviously something you're always conscious of. If you're running this sort of setup, you're going to have to be picking times to do things and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's only a small adjustment though, really. Like, it was something I was worried about before, we began, just, if it was going to be a real kind of impact on our quality of life. But to be honest, I think it really only enhances it, because you just become more in tune to the environment around you and what kind of a day it is. I really take note of what the weather's doing now and know that that's a day to do certain things and not others.
Now there are a lot of other houses going in around us here. They're obviously striking the same problems with electric companies and sourcing electricity and that sort of thing. Are many embracing this sort of method?
It's quite amazing actually how many people have come to visit us because they want to find out about solar hot water systems for a start. That's probably one of the easiest things that people can install. Going solar or being completely off the grid is a bigger step and does take more courage maybe and investment. But a lot of people have come to visit us just to see if it actually isn't as hard as it seems. They want to actually see it functioning and are usually quite surprised at how easy it is.
And you mentioned a hydro scheme.
Yes.
We're actually looking at that in another show.
Oh yeah.
But what size do you think, and where's your water source?
Well, we've got 2 ponds, although because it's been so dry, the top pond's pretty much dried out at the moment. But there's a lot of water underneath, so we're going to be getting a digger up to do a little bit more digging and hopefully get down to that water. And then all we need is an 8-metre drop, and we've got that, but we need it over a shorter space. So we're going to get the digger to dig that out as well. And the mini hydro system, I believe, is actually from the UK, the one that we've managed to find that will work. Yeah.
And so you'll be absolutely independent then and secure with your energy.
Well, that's the idea, unless the sun stops shining or the wind stops blowing or we get no rain at all.
We're all in trouble if that happens.
Then we should be good. And we do have to watch what appliances we have. Like, we don't have an oven, which means there's not a lot of home baking that goes on in our house. And I can't really use a hairdryer on a hot setting, but and our washing machine doesn't read the inverter that we have. If we had a more expensive or a more sophisticated inverter, that wouldn't be a problem. So we don't, we don't kind of overuse on the electricity side in terms of computer games or. So it would be an adjustment for some families, I imagine. Toaster, we don't have a toaster, but we can do everything.
Life
really.
goes on.
It does.
Well, thanks for your time today. We've learned a lot. Well, thanks for watching our first episode in the Certificate of Renewable Energies. If you like this course or any other for that matter, then please call 0800 SIT to learn for more information. Thanks for watching. Well, I'm sure we've all heard of kite flying. Oops. Well, I'm sure we've all heard. Okay.